AND1 became synonymous with street basketball just after the change of the millennium, but after a phenomenally exciting and successful start, the company started slipping. It quickly lost ground to bigger brands that entered the same market and eventually went under. Join us in this video as we explore the rise and fall of AND1 and also take a few lessons from their journey. First up, why was AND1 so successful in the beginning? Seth Berger was a University of Pennsylvania undergraduate. At the university's prestigious Wharton School, Berger learned that mainstream businesses weren't environments he could ever imagine himself spending his working life. He was also a basketball fan of note. In fact, he spent most of his days dreaming about ways to make basketball his life. Initially, he started a small venture with J. Cohen Gilbert, his best friend. They sold basketball t-shirts. Then Tom Austin chipped in. He was as crazy about basketball as the other two young men. It was Foot Locker that changed the future for AND1. Keep watching. We're going to show you everything. Next, how the company developed from here. There was already a lot of energy locked up in the company name, so Tom, Seth, and Jay took it a step further and started printing t-shirts with basketball trash talk on them. The buying public responded almost immediately. No other company that created clothing in the basketball niche had anything like it, and while the three young Turks initially sold their products from the back of a car, they were soon approached by Foot Locker, and this is where the game changed. And then, Foot Locker changed the future for the three entrepreneurs. Foot Locker is a top American sportswear retailer. Once they were on board, other outlets followed suit. Within 2 years, AND1 wear started featuring on television shows like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and Friends. Needless to say, their sales skyrocketed. How can a broken ankle shatter a dream? Stay with us. More about that in a moment. Then they set their sights on Nike. At that point, Nike was the biggest producer of basketball apparel, AND1 decided to mimic Nike and signed deals with major NBA stars. Now remember, much of Nike's astonishing success in the 90s happened because they partnered with Michael Jordan. AND1, in a similar attempt, decided to sign with Stephon Marbury, a promising young talent at the time. He played brilliantly at the college level with Georgia Tech and ended up being drafted 4th overall by the Milwaukee Bucks in '96. AND1 thought he would be the perfect candidate to take their brand to even greater heights. But a broken ankle puts iron in the spokes. AND1 designed and made on-court sneakers, and Marbury donned them before the product launch in his debut week. But then disaster struck. Marbury broke his ankle, and that while wearing AND1 sneakers. Sales dipped badly, and the attempt to take the AND1 brand to the NBA level failed abysmally. But the three guys weren't nearly ready to throw in the towel yet. They had enough energy and creativity to keep on fighting for a spot in the market. Coming up, out of the ashes, the AND1 brand's true potential emerges. Stay with us for more. Then the street basketball idea struck home. Shortly after their NBA disappointment, a tape popped up in the office that became the open door to unrivaled success for the AND1 brand. This videotape told the story of the unbelievable buzz around Rucker Park street basketball in Harlem. Street basketball is also called streetball and differs a little from formal basketball in style and flair. Remember, back then Harlem was financially backward and great swarms of residents were diehard basketball fans, but couldn't afford Madison Square Garden seats. So streetball or street basketball filled the void, and the game belonged just as much to the spectators as it did to the players. Now AND1 has started seeing the true brand potential. The three owners of AND1 realized immediately that this form of basketball and bringing the whole culture into the mainstream was the beginning of an even bigger dream than the one they had started with. They set about mixing the footage from the tape that popped up in the office with unreleased music and called it AND1 Mixtape Volume 1. It was handed out for free around the Rucker Park precinct. It was this simple creative act that gave AND1 its street cred and pumped its popularity with the Harlem residents. People loved a brand that was all about the styles on the Harlem streets and that was prepared to live close to the masses. Few realize how popular AND1 really became in the golden years. Keep watching, we're gonna show you. Next, AND1 fills a void in the market. While all of this Harlem love was flowing in AND1's direction, the NBA was in a bad place. Jordan was retiring from the sport and the league was bending under a lockout. AND1 and street basketball effortlessly slipped into this space. Streetball started to step into the limelight and along with it, the AND1 brand. So just how popular did AND1 become in the good years? The Harlem masses started asking for a volume 2 of the mixtape just days after the release of the first one. So to capitalize on the obvious demand, AND1 introduced the mixtape tour. This was essentially a series of exhibition games where AND1 signed streetball players and made a team of their own. own. They then took the team on a tour of places like Pennsylvania, Washington, Georgia, New Jersey, and of course New York. And as far as they went, the AND1 team played exhibition games against local teams. AND1 was so unbelievably successful at marketing their product and brand that Nike started to look at them as targeted competition. And in 2003, ESPN asked AND1 to do a reality show on the back of their next mixtape tour. When sitting down with ESPN, they decided to make this a talent hunt. And as suddenly as it began, the golden years came to a standstill. Stay with us for the downslide of AND1. And this is how AND1 became a household name. The ESPN show and the tour made AND1 a household name, and the three entrepreneurs decided the time had arrived to take the brand to a global audience. The next series of mixtapes were filmed in locations like Australia, Brazil, France, Italy, and Germany. The confidence AND1 had gained made them think about trying to break into the NBA again. This time, Tom Austin shouldered the creative responsibility. The first shoe in the new range was a pair of slip-on shoes they named Postgame. After that, they launched Tai Chi, which blew up the market. This design brought in more than $65 million in less than 2 years. The AND1 team even got to play at Madison Square Garden, and Vincent Carter wore Tai Chis during the performance, even though he wasn't contracted to AND1. But the golden days of AND1 were just about over. The bigger players in the market had been silently preparing themselves for a full frontal onslaught. They devised their ranges of street basketball apparel. Nike called their range Nike Freestyle. AND1 was almost synonymous with this market, but a trusted name like Nike and the millions of dollars backing the firm had a terrible effect on AND1 sales. And then the fall of AND1 began. Nike's Freestyle range entered the market in 2001. AND1's fall didn't happen until 4 years later. So what was it that drove them from the streetball market? It turns out that the gradually spreading belief among AND1 streetball players that the company was making a fortune from their hard work was the key factor that lost AND1 its precious street cred. There were never any fixed contracts between AND1 and the players, certainly not in the value of the deals the company made with the players. The money paid to the players also had no parity. Individual players started to feel disrespected, and this brought down team morale tremendously. Players started having altercations and heated arguments with tour managers, company officials, and then eventually between themselves. Players were feeling used, and they lost respect for the AND1 owners. To see what eventually happened to AND1, watch this video to the end. However, the unrest wasn't only brewing among the players. There was trouble between the owners and founders as well. Tom Austin was Mr. Creative in the company. He came up with the designs of the shoes and other products. He ended up moving to Taiwan and worked like a demon on what was essentially still his passion project. The pace at which he was working impacted his health. He developed an acute digestive disorder that saw him dropping more than 30 pounds in a matter of 2 months. He burned out and suddenly informed Jay and Seth he was quitting, that his health couldn't stand it anymore. When Tom left, AND1 was set adrift. The remaining 2 owners decided to sell the company before it lost all its value. Finally, the fall came. Shortly before the 2005 mixtape tour, just after the team had been featured on the Sports Illustrated cover, players were informed that AND1 was going to be sold off. The company still exists, but the astonishing rise is something of the past. Any prediction that it may have been the next big sports brand, filling the proverbial shoes of brands like Nike, fell flat. This is a sad tale of instant success, a lot of hard work, and how wrong decisions and bad management can shatter a dream. We hope you enjoyed our look at the rise and fall of AND1. And as we end this video, just a reminder to keep a lookout for our next upload.